I'm Carmen, a realtor with Poland's Realty. I put together a simple guide for my buyers on how to get mortgage ready. We have an expert here, Victor Andrade, the VP at Meadowbrook Financial Mortgage Bank. Today, we are going to learn how we partner smoothly, not to only get our clients to the closing table, but to make sure our buyers and viewers feel educated and empowered every step to the way. Hi, Victor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I look forward to having this conversation.
I'm very impressed with what I have seen and heard about Meadowbrook so far. To help me and our viewers understand the full picture, could you tell us a bit more about the company?
Sure. So Meadowbrook Financial, we're a mortgage banker, here in New York. We're licensed in many states throughout the Northeast, and we help clients and guide them through the mortgage process, right? Everybody needs a home, in our opinion. So here at Meadowbrook, we like to try to make it as seamless and as easy as possible, right? We feel that it's very important for clients to be educated and make informed decisions. So at Meadowbrook, we have obviously several offices. We have here 2 in Astoria, 1 in Westchester, and our team, is one of the top producing teams here in New York State. And we like to try to, again, keep helping and educating the communities so they can purchase and have home ownership.
Yeah, Victor, could you tell us more about how you set up your company and then you have few branches over this year?
Yeah, so, obviously first I started as a loan officer, right? And I did all different parts of the mortgage industry into like processing. I used to, assist, underwriters and I used to assist loan officers as well while I was a loan officer, because I'm very big on education and understanding what the process is like. So, my first few years in my career, that's what I did. I just learned and learned and learned. So as I continue moving forward, right, in the industry, I started, getting, well known and building my team, right, little by little. And what ended up happening was that as I continue to grow and, continue to grow the team, I decided to go off on my own and open my offices. The first office was the one we opened here, the 3265 in Astoria, right? Opened that one in 2015. And then I opened the next one in 2019 here in Astoria as well. And then, I opened the last one in Westchester, because my team is continuing to grow. I think that's it though, right, with offices, because it's a lot of work, building a team, having a team. It's a lot of work. I do love being a team leader and I love having a team as well, because we're like family. But at the end of the day, it's making sure that we have quality instead of quantity.
I have heard there is a funny Starbucks story behind how you got into the mortgage industry. Would you share the story with us?
Yes. It is a funny story, actually, how I got in the industry. So I was going to school for engineering, right? I was young. I was 20 years old. I started going to school, and my sister and my mother actually wanted me to go to church, right? They're very big church-going people. I was not, right? But they wanted me to go. So what ended up happening was I took my sister once to church. She introduced me to a really nice girl that she wanted me to talk to, right? So, immediately, the girl, she was the youth pastor leader actually, and she took my number. And what happened was she decided to give me a call and introduce me, right? And invite me to the youth reunions that they had every week. So at the reunions, right, what we would do is we would go there and obviously talk about God and talk about people and this and that.
Oh,
right?
I thought they was going to read the Bible together.
Yeah. So me personally, I just honestly wanted to hook up with the girl, right? But of course, that didn't happen. But so what ended up happening is we're going to the youth classes, right? And we were there. Now, the guy who got me in the industry just so happened to be, going to that as well, right? Now, I wasn't really talking to many people. I wasn't trying to make friends, to be honest with you. I was just trying to go there and try to see if I could hook up with this girl. She was cute, right? I was 20 years old. What do you expect, right? So what ended up happening was we ended up going and taking a break, going to a Starbucks, right? And we go into Starbucks, and of course, right, there's a really cute cashier. And of course, being 20 years old, I start flirting with her, right? And I started talking and, I like to talk, right? So what ended up happening was the guy that's there in the mortgage industry that got me in the industry, he heard me speaking to the girl, right? And he goes, man, you can really talk. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was just talking to a girl. He goes, no, you can really talk. I was like, all right. So he says, listen, why don't you think about getting into the mortgage industry? I basically said to him, no, I don't think so. I don't even know what that is. I'm going to be an engineer. Why would I want to do mortgages, right?
He already found your skill.
Yeah, but little do you know that listen, in Spanish we say you can't even use your tongue to pray, right? Because you have no idea what's happening. So what ended up happening was that he ended up taking my number. I took his number, but I never called him. At that time, I was working at the Olive Garden, right? And, I obviously dismissed him, but I was working at the Olive Garden. And, this was probably in November, December. Then in August or September of 2004, right, I'm working at the Olive Garden, and this guy sits down at my table, right? The same guy comes in, and I'm his waiter. And I'm like, hey, how you doing, bud? He's like, hey, how are you doing? I remember you. You're the one that can talk, right? And I said, yeah. So he invites me again to come and be on the mortgages. Now, things had changed for me at that time because now I had moved out of my house, right? And started, living in a bedroom, right? With some college friends. So now I needed money, right? And I didn't have a lot. So I figured I was going to try anything, right? So what ended up happening was that now he invited me to come to his house, to his office in Hempstead and go. So now I'm like, you know what? I'm a little more receptive because I had half a scholarship. I couldn't pay for half a scholarship to go to Hofstra. And, I basically almost pretty much dropped out of school and I was just working, just trying to, get survive and plan my next move. So he comes along, he invites me, he brings me in, I go there. And that was it. I got to his office. He sits me down in a chair and he says, call people. And I said, for what? And he says, for mortgages. And I said, I still don't know what mortgages are. Somehow I made it work. So 21 years later, I'm still doing mortgages.
Okay, so that means you start. Wow. I think he want to say hi to you.
No, he's just being nosy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, come. 3, 2, action.
Okay, so that means when you into the mortgage industry, you start cold calling, right?
Yeah, in a way, yes, I would call, but I mostly, what I do most is hit the streets. So I go in on a Monday. The second Monday, because the first Monday is actually Labor Day, right? So the second Monday of 2004, I started, the mortgage industry. That day, right, I went back to visit one of my neighbors, right? And my neighbor, right, their mother wanted to do a refinance.
Wow.
Right? So she says, oh, Vic, what are you doing these days? I started doing mortgages. She says, I want to refinance. Right? Can you help me? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah, of course.
And I said, I don't know what you need to do, but I'm sure I can help you. Yeah. And then she says, okay, well, let me know. And I'm like, all right. So I'll let you know tomorrow. So, I didn't even know what documents she needed. I didn't know anything about anything because I literally had just started that day. And the guy wanted me just to call people, right? But I didn't like calling people. I'm a face-to-face type of person. I'm a street guy. So what happened is we ended up, I ended up getting her information and I ended up, doing her loan, her refinance. Closed in about 3 or 4 weeks, right? Because, it takes time to close a deal, right? So it took about 3 weeks to get closed. Then the broker, right, or the guy I was working for at that time, he gives me a check, right? And I remember that the check was around $4,000.
Wow.
And for a 21-year-old, when you're getting $4,000 in 2004, it's a lot of money. So all I remember is saying, wait a minute, you're giving me $4,000 right now? So, I said, yeah, I'm giving you a $4,000 check. And to me, that was like the greatest thing ever. 21 years old, just made $4,000 just from talking to somebody that you wanted to refinance. So I asked this guy, I said, are you sure about that? So I tell him, so if I bring you another client, you're gonna give me $4,000 again. He goes, yeah, or around there, because it was commission. And I said, are you sure about that? So if I bring you 25 clients, I'm gonna make $100,000. He's like, yeah. I said, you sure about that? So you're telling me if I bring you 250 clients, right, I'm gonna make $1 million. And he's like, well, yeah, if you bring me 250 clients, and yeah, you'll make a lot of money. Actually, it was less than that. It was, I think 250 times 4. Yeah, it was that's what it was, 250. So I sat there, and I was going to school for engineering. So quickly, I'm doing numbers in my head. So now I'm thinking, wow, if I bring 100 clients, 4,000, that's 400,000 a year. That's a pretty good number. So automatically, I started doing, okay, well, there's 52 weeks in a year, right? If I do 2 clients per week, that's 104 clients, I can make over $400,000. Yes. And all I have to do is bring in 2 clients a day, a week. I mean, to me, that was spectacular. So what did I do? I said, listen, I'll be right back. I wasn't good about calling, but what did I do? I hit the streets. So I literally walked around all the neighborhoods and all the streets everywhere, just talking to people and just saying, hey, you want to buy a house? Hey, you want to buy a house? Hey, you want to buy a house? To everybody, to as many people as humanly possible. And then what I did was when I got a car, I started driving to all the neighborhoods in all of New York. I go to Queens, I went to Brooklyn, the Bronx, right? I didn't do Manhattan too much because I figured co-op's not really my thing, right? But I was definitely doing those 3 boroughs. I even went into Staten Island. Right? But in those days, there was no GPS.
Yes.
Right? So I used to do MapQuest. I don't know if people know what that is.
Yeah, you had to print out.
So I had to go to MapQuest. So let's say I was going to an office in Queens because I was living in Long Island. So I had to MapQuest it from Long Island to Queens to that office. Then I had to do another MapQuest from that office to the next office, and I had to print that out. And then from then on, like that. So I literally was working out with a stack of probably 20 pieces of paper, right? Just giving me all the different addresses where I was going. I couldn't miss a turn, because if I miss a turn, I got lost and it ruined my navigation. It wasn't like my GPS would readjusts. Where now I'm just using MapQuest to go everywhere, and there was times where I would lose or get lost. Especially happened to me in the Bronx, right? In the Bronx, it happened to me, and that was the borough I knew the least. And so when I would get lost in the Bronx, let me tell you, I had to figure out, and this is where street smarts come in, right? Because I had to sit there and navigate through everything where I was going and figure out how to get out. And that's actually, believe it or not, how I actually learned a lot of places and was able to drive around and actually understand more of New York and different areas I didn't go. Because, once I passed one place and passed one area, I'd actually also find new real estate companies and other companies to go to. And then that's, and I just figured it out. And then eventually I stopped using MapQuest, but it would, let me tell you, it was fun. It was fun to start out, at that age.
Yeah, it is. What is the advantage of working with Meadowbrook versus a mortgage broker?
Well, so there's several differences between working with a mortgage banker and a mortgage broker, right? Now, fortunately for me, I can actually act as both a mortgage banker and a mortgage broker, depending on the type of scenario. But I would say about 85% of my loans, we bank, right? The reason why is because when you're a broker, you're sending out the application, right, to another bank for review. Right? So what happens is you essentially kind of lose control. You're essentially sending the loan out, and obviously you should know the products, right? But you're also sending it out, and and you're expecting that bank to approve it, right? And you're at the mercy of that bank, right? Whether or not they're going to approve it or not. If something goes wrong, something comes out, maybe a document gets sent that shouldn't have been sent, or maybe they have questions or whatever it is, right? Maybe the underwriter's not feeling well that day. Maybe she's having a bad day. Whatever it is, it could kill your deal, right? Unfortunately, in this industry and in our industry, there's a lot of things that come up, and sometimes, losing that control could affect, your transaction. Right? So that's why I don't really like to broker unless I have to, right? I don't like to broker. See, on the other hand, if I banker, for example, right, I know the underwriters personally, right? I know the processes personally, right? I know the guidelines of the bank myself, which are not gonna change. Right. And what happens is, because we've established a relationship with the underwriters, with the processing, with the closing department, with everybody, right, we're able to, work more smoothly and more coherent. right? So what happens is that, if the underwriter has a question about the file, she knows it's my file. She can just give me a call and say, hey, Victor, can we explain to me so I can better understand, right, what this file is about? And we can have a conversation before either A, she suspends it or denies it or approves it, right? Maybe she just wants to ask her question about this client. How do you feel about it? Are they a good client? What's your feeling about this, right? But at the same time, she maybe want to ask a question regarding a guideline, right? So there's a lot of different things that, differences between that. As a broker, that's not going to happen. A broker, you submit it, you don't even know what the underwriter, who's going to get it. You don't know what's going to happen. So that's a very big distinct difference between being a banker, being a broker as well. So as a banker, right, for example, we can close, right, immediately, right? So let's say, for example, as long as we sent out the CD, right, or if it's not a TRID loan that's required to be sent out 3 days prior, I get it clear to close on Wednesday, I can close on Thursday. Right? Why? Because I also have a relationship with the bank attorney, right? We've established a relationship where if I need a favor, if I need something done a little bit quicker, obviously, that it meets compliance, it's possible. As a broker, you have to worry about the bank attorney, whether or not they're going to send it out or not, whether the CDs get sent out by the bank, by the broker, by the bank that's doing it. There's a lot of moving parts and there's not as much flexibility. So for me personally, I rather bank a loan and act as a banker, right? Because of the relationships that I've established over the years and the workflow, as opposed to being a broker where I lose control of the file and it gets sent out and then now we don't know what can happen.
Okay.
So absolutely a banker is always, for me, is a much better way to go.
Working with the Meadowbrooks, that means you could shorten your processing time and you have more flexibility on controlling the case. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Victor, from a lender perspective, what key documents or steps should the buyers have in place to make sure the mortgage application is approved quickly or smoothly?
So what I tell most people, right, is that I would say about 90% of the population cannot just wake up one day and say, gee, I'm going to buy a house today, right? They can't, right? You have to prepare, right? So unless you don't fall in that 10% that can just wake up and buy a house, you need to prepare, you need to sit down with a banker, and you need to go over what you're able to qualify for and what you need to do to be qualified, right? Some of the main things that you need to get done is review your credit. How is your credit situation? How much debt do you have? Right? Do you have any collections? Have you paid off all your debt? Right? Stop taking out new credit. Okay, so those are things that you need to worry about. Your credit is one of the most important things. It's not the most important thing, but it's definitely one of the most important things that you need to have, right? So your credit is important. We want to be over 700 if you can. If you're not, that's fine. You can still buy at 600,000, even at 580 technically, but you don't want to be down there. You want to be as high as possible to give you the most programs available for you. The next thing that you want to do is your income, right? Well, how much are you making? How much are you reporting? Maybe is the correct statement, right? Because here in New York and in the tri-state area, people make money. The difference is that some report it and some don't. Let's be honest, right? A lot of self-employed people, they get paid cash. They feel like they don't have to report cash, right? And they don't, but they do. Because if you have cash, you can technically, yes, report it on your Schedule C, right? Because that's the way it's supposed to be. The problem is that everybody feels like cash cannot be reported, and that's incorrect, right? What happens when you report income is that if you report income, it gives you more flexibilities for more programs, right? It allows you to do a government program, right? So if you have income on your tax returns and you show income, right, to qualify, you have more flexibility to more programs. Now, we obviously have other programs where you don't have to show income to qualify, but you have to have a higher down payment. So then the assets come into play. Well, the question is, all right, maybe you have really good credit, but you don't show too much income, but you make money, right? Just, you don't report it, right? We have non-QM loans, right? The no income verification loans, right? Basically for those programs, all you have to put down 20%, and that's when the assets come into play. How much down payment do you have? right? Because if you're able to put down 20% or more, typically you're eligible for those programs. But if you're going to put down less than that, then it becomes more difficult, and now you have to source income, right? Whether it's through bank statements, tax returns, pay stubs, or verification of employment. So ideally, you're going to want to put down a higher down payment because, again, it gives you more flexibility, right? So the three main factors for you to be able to get a mortgage are credit, income, and assets, right? If those three are spectacular, then you're an APB borrower getting a conventional loan with the lowest possible rate, right? If you have two of those three, I can get you a mortgage, but you need to have at least two of those, right? Now, if you only have one, then it's gonna be very difficult, right? Is it possible? It can be. But if you're gonna have one over all of those, I would suggest having down payment. Because the more money you have as a down payment, the more flexibility you have to maybe even getting a private mortgage, right? So, these are things that you have to do and you have to start preparing. And if you don't sit down with a banker, right, then you're not gonna know that you need to get this done. Right? Credit, asset, income. Those are the three most important things that you need to worry about to be able to purchase a home or invest in your family through real estate.
Let's be real, deal sometimes hits nets, right? When an appraisal come in low or the last minute conditions, how do you and your team handle communication?
So, communication with you guys?
Yeah, with us and then with the clients. And what is the plan for working with us as a realtor to identify solutions for our clients?
So listen, I've been in the industry for 21 years, right? A lot of things come up, right? A lot of things sometimes are unpredictable, right? The value comes in short, the borrower's income is lower than we thought, there's violations on the property, the credit goes down because, they didn't pay a Verizon bill because they returned back the equipment and they didn't know that they had to pay it back, or else, Verizon was going to put a collection on their credit.
And then I have an example is because during the time and then one of my clients, and then they just apply another credit card. And then they applied to a credit card,
not knowing, went to buy furniture already for a house they don't even own yet, went to take out a card, returned back the lease, but then the lease, they had a scratch on the dent, and then they wouldn't, want to pay for the dent, deposited cash. I mean, listen, we can go on and on and on about all the different things that could come up. I've seen everything, right? The key to this is, first of all, I always communicate with the agents, right? I have a very strict policy to always communicate with the agents, good or bad, right? But the main thing is to get the deal closed. Right? That is my main concern all the time, is to close. Nobody remembers how you got there. All they remember is the day it closed.
Yes.
That's it. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters, right? So what separates me, I feel like, from a lot of my competitors and other places is that I have a lot of product knowledge, right? So although a guideline may say this, right, there's always a potential loophole around the guideline. You just have to know how to read it and how to interpret it. And that's where a lot of people don't do their due diligence, right? See, like I was explaining, I've told people before, I like people who are street smart. But this is where being book smart comes in, right? Being street smart is always a good thing. You always find a solution. You're able to talk your way out. You're able to go out and you're a fighter, right? But when you're book smart, right, you're able to understand and read guidelines and find a way to read through the lines, right? And that's why in this industry, it's good to be book smart and street smart. So what happens is, I like to think that I'm good at both, right? So the reason why I feel like I'm good at both is because I sit there and dissect the guidelines, right? And I sit there and I'm able to challenge my underwriters and the guidelines on what does it actually mean and how it reads, because they may interpret it one way and I may interpret it another way. So what happens is depending on how you interpret it will determine whether the loan or that stipulation that's required can be either dismissed or it can be bypassed, right? So these are all things that you need to understand, right? And unfortunately, that only comes with experience, right? I've been doing this for 21 years, and over those 21 years, done over thousands of loans. So I've seen thousands of scenarios, right? And I'm able to now, when I see a scenario, more than likely I've seen it before. So I already know how to tackle it and how to go about it. And this is where having a relationship with your underwriter is very important, and having a relationship with the operations, because then we can work together in a cohesive unit to be able to resolve the issues, right? So I typically, when something comes up, I always let the real estate agent know. Because why? Because believe it or not, in the past, I've had real estate agents who give me good ideas, right? And I say, okay, let me let the real estate agent know. Let me let the attorney know as well. Let me let the title company know if I know them. And let's all together find a way to resolve the problem if needed, right? Sometimes violation is there. Even though we don't require, we can close with violations, sometimes it can be something that's out of the ordinary, right? The client makes a cash deposit, even though we tell them not to deposit cash. Why? Because they let their brother borrow money 5 years ago, and now the brother's paying them back, right? And so they deposit cash, right? Or, he told me once, this is a funny story. Client goes to me, oh, hey, you have a car here, it's affecting your qualification. He goes, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna sell that car. I'm like, okay, great, you're gonna sell it. Okay, well, let me know once you have the proof. He goes and he sells the car, right? No problem. Goes and he sells it. And then I ask him, okay, hey, he comes into the office. I remember we're sitting right there. And I said, hey, I see you have a $15,000 cash deposit. He goes, oh yeah, I sold the car. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I sold the car. The guy gave me cash. I'm like, no, I told you not to deposit cash. He's like, yeah, but this is from the sale of the car. And I said, yeah, but you can't deposit cash. You have to, I need a bill of sale. I need a check. I need this and that. Before you deposit cash, you have to let me know. I goes, yeah, but I was like, because I need proof of the cash. So you know what he does? He pulls out his cell phone. He says, yeah, I took a picture of the cash. He took a picture of the $15,000 before he deposited, and he thought that was going to be okay for me to use it as sourcing the $15,000 in cash.
But most of the buyer doesn't know the sourcing and then the paperwork. They just
absolutely they have no idea. So now obviously I have to resolve this situation, because now we have $15,000 in cash that we need to find a way to source, because he doesn't have any more money. These are things that always come up. These are things that always, happen. And, and obviously I let the real estate agent know. And then, we figure out a way, put our heads together to figure out a way to make it work. Because the truth of the matter is that, our job is to just get it to the closing table. That's it. Nothing else matters.
Yes.
Okay.
It is very important we work closely together.
Yes, very important. And I don't want to be a secret loan officer where I set the loan and don't tell anybody what's happening. Yeah. I want to work in the dark. Like an evil sorcerer. Just come on and say, hey, all right, we're cleared out of the blues. Nothing happened. Just kind of doing my thing over here for 30 days or 2 months, and then just go to closing. We don't want to do that, right? We want to have communication going back and forth, because at the same time, we want to make sure we let the seller know that we're about to clear the file, so that also when I lock the rate doesn't expire.
Victor, where do you think the market is heading?
Oh, that's an open-ended question.
Yes, a lot of people want to know that, right?
Yes. All right. Do you want to ask me about the real estate market in terms of how the properties are going up in value, or do you want to know more about the rates?
The rates.
The rates. Okay. So obviously the rates are, they're based on a lot of different factors: mortgage-backed securities, economy, right, and demand as well. Not really demand, but more of if people are looking to purchase and people are looking to invest in the market or not, right? So there is a direct correlation between the stock market, right, and the rates. But at the same time, another big factor is the economy. Right? The economy, how it's moving, how inflation is going, if it's going up or down, that's a direct effect as well. And another one that people don't know too much about is how the world is moving. Are there any wars? Are there any issues going on in the world? That has a direct effect on the economy as well, and the market, right? So unfortunately, the more wars there are going on, typically lowers the rates. right? Now, yes, it's wars going on right now. There are, obviously wars, but they're not major, that bring the market down, because the main thing is that inflation is so strong right now, still from COVID, is still recovering, that it's impossible for them to lower the rates up to a certain point or past a certain point, right? Because inflation needs to stay at a certain level, right? And the economy is still not the greatest, although it is improving tremendously, right? Those are all different factors that help with the rate and determine what the rate is. Now, there's a lot of big rumors going on that, President Trump is going to, have, Jerome Powell, right, lower the rates. We don't know if that's the case or not. We don't know if that's going to happen or not, right? Obviously, apparently his job is on the line and, he's going to get fired or not, whatever it is. That's all a lot of mumbo jumbo, in my opinion. I feel that the rates may go down. And if they do, it'll be a slight, decrease. Right. I don't think they're going to go into the 5s and 4s just yet. Right. Because I think that the economy is kind of settling and laying and things are going pretty well. Right. They're getting better. But to lower the rates to a number that's too much could potentially cause inflation to start up again. And that's what we don't want. The whole point of the last 3 years, right, is to decrease inflation. Right. So if you go and you lower them too much and inflation comes back, then it was a moot point to lower the rates. So in my opinion, I think the rates should stay where they are for at least till next year, right? Just kind of hover in the 6s, right? And then maybe next year, how things start moving and the economy keeps going, then maybe they can go down a little bit. Because right now we don't want people going nuts, right? We don't want people, they lower those rates to 5s. And let me tell you, those house prices are going to continue to skyrocket because prices are still going up. People are still buying, right? Yes. Especially here in the tri-state area, people are buying. There's more and more people coming in, right? And more people moving out in the outskirts. Maybe not necessarily here in the boroughs, but people are buying in the outskirts. Westchester, Long Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I mean, I consider Connecticut basically part of New York. It's like an extension of New York, essentially. How many people from Connecticut, from New Jersey, from Pennsylvania come to New York and work? Millions upon millions, right? So I think that right now people are still buying. And if you add now another factor and lower rates even more, I think, don't get me wrong, I'm going to love it because I'm going to be super busy. But at the same time, that may be harmful for the future and the long term of the economy, right? So I personally think that they should keep it a little bit where they are now, a little bit longer, maybe till the end of the year, and then see how things continue to move along. And then maybe we can lower them next year, right? That's what I think that should happen. Now, whether or not I think that's going to happen, who knows, right? They may decrease a little bit, but I hope that it's not too much where it causes chaos again.
Victor, thank you so much for the insightful lectures. It was very informative sections. If you have any questions about mortgage or real estate, you could contact Victor from Meadowbrook. My name is Carmen from Prolings Realty, the next door team.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. We appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you gathered something that can help you purchase a home in the future for you and your family. And if you need any help, my team is here to help you out. We speak, we speak Tibetan, Bengali, Spanish, English, and we even speak a little Chinese. So, hey, give us a call. Let us know if you have any questions. And let's go. Win the day, win the week.